Welcome, dear friends, in this new Daoland video. We're going to talk today about the microcosmic orbit, or what is it also called in Chinese, of course, the Xiao Zhou Tian. That is the small circulating heaven, and it is the echo of the heavenly circulation inside ourselves. The reason why we do that is because I get often questions about these things, and I want to first relate to a story of what I came through when I was living in the Wudang Mountains, namely that I was at a dinner with about 6 or 7 of my brothers and our Sifu, Yao Xuande, and they were making a little bit jokes about me being the foreigner, because as a foreigner you're never really fully accepted within any kind of Chinese thing. This is just a fact. Racism is not specifically Western. We very often dismiss people on the basis of they maybe not understanding our language properly. They do the same, and also because you are not raised in that culture, they assume that you never really understand them. That is actually one of the talking points of the Chinese government, that we don't really understand them, and as a result of that, we make errors of judgment. No, that's fine. Anyway, my Sifu at a certain point corrected my brothers, and he said, like, you should take him a little bit more serious because he studied Dan Dao and you didn't. And Dan Dao is actually the essence of studying the circulation of the small heaven inside yourself. The rationale of this study is found in the Suwen. Suwen is the first part of the Huangdi Jing, the weft of the internals by the emperor, the Yellow Emperor, and in that first chapter of the Suwen, it actually describes the different states of immortals. I've talked about it extensively in our sequence about the wilderness idea within Taoism and Chinese culture as a whole, but I will iterate a little bit more on it here. And what I would like to explain is that this chapter is actually about why people have the birthright to be immortal, because in the far past people were fine-tuning to the large circulation of the stars and so on. I'm not going to go into the technical details of the stars and so on in this movie, but I will do that another time. Just become a member, because you have to go to the bachelor program for that part, but we will get there. At the moment when we are looking at that chapter, it says basically we fine-tuned through the echo of the external large circulation within ourselves. We attuned our body to nature, and as a result of that we were immortal. Once we stopped doing that, because of breaking down the Jing, because of our moral depravement, our health started suffering and we started building our modern societies. This is a very important part, because this is the essential or quintessential Taoist idea about why immortality training is important, because it is important about trying to find back this pristine, paradisical origin, you can say. And that is similar in that sense, like Christianity has that, and Islam has that, and many other cultures, they have this idea about that in the past somewhere there was this perfect period where everything was great, and as a result of that we are experiencing loss and all kind of negative feelings. Very beautiful, very romantic, but this is of course a very essential part of learning. At the core of this is the thoughts about Yuan-Qi, and this is what we have to investigate to get to the point of understanding what this microcosmic orbit is all about. Because if you please at this point let go of all your ideas that you hear from other teachers on the internet or when you go to their workshops, the Yuan-Qi is a very fragile force. And in the microcosmic orbit, what we're trying to develop is something what is called a very fragile understanding of what is happening. And we have to do that to be able to reconcile ourselves with our Yuan-Qi. Our body is built from 2 parts. Just on a regular basis, you can say it's built from 2 parts. That is our prenatal and our postnatal part. And our prenatal part is the part from conception, towards our birth. And at the moment when we are conceived by our parents, in the womb of our mother, heaven and earth also combine with that at that moment. So we have two perfect parts, heaven and earth, which are both very fragile forces, and we have the frustrations and the accidents and the diseases that we have in our body that are being put in us as a result of our father and our mother coming together and creating a baby. So we have these four parents. At the moment when we are being developed in the 10 months of the pregnancy, we gradually build our channels, we build our organs, we build our flesh, but we do not have consciousness yet. And in the last part, when we are getting ready for leaving the body, we go through 38 different changes, and these 38 different changes gradually make us ready to live in the world. So there is, for Taoism, no birth trauma. There is a gradual increased readiness for living in this world of dirt and dust, which is also called the world of suffering. Because, there is pain around here, and this pain is sometimes fun and sometimes it's terrible. But by studying these pains, we can prevent that we suffer from it. Even though there's all kind of reasons around us to suffer, it doesn't mean that we have to suffer. It is depending to a large degree on our attitude. You see that in modern psychotherapy, we very often want to go back to this original birth trauma and we want to resolve this birth trauma. But you see, for Taoism, this is not the case. In essence, what we say in Taoism is that a lot of the different kind of tensions that we acquire during our life, they are the result of all the things happening to us. And through our Qigong practice, through our Daoyin practice, through our breath practice, through our Tai Chi Chuan and so on, we gradually unwind this tension and we go back to this very pristine, original thing of being a baby. And that means that we have to understand the nature of being a baby. Like I said before, forget about all the things that you learn normally, because what we want to do then, as that sense, is we want to go back to some very important qualities of being a baby. One of the things is a baby has soft bones. That is a very important part. These soft bones make that the body is not able to stand. That's what people usually say, but that is not exactly right. Then there is the very strong muscles. If you hold the grip of a baby, if a baby holds you in a grip, you can see that the muscles are very strong. And we have to go back to that, because at that moment, when the child is being born in the first months, the yuan qi is very, very strong. What is very important also of this yuan qi is sufficient to live for about 1,000 years. Now, a little bit more if you want. So that yuan qi is a lot, and we squander it because of getting caught in this maze that society presents us with, of desires and need for money, and need for food, and need for love and attention and appreciation, and so on and so on. And if you let go of all these things, and it says already in the Huangdi Jing, if you let go of all these things, you just live your life in a normal, natural way, like all even-legged animals do, then at that moment you will find peace within yourself. By nature, people are yin. Yeah, so this is a very important part. At the moment when we talk about the humans by nature being yin, what they mean is numerologically we have only 2 legs, and animals have 4 legs, or they have 8 legs or 6 legs. That means that they belong to Earth. And we share that aspect with all different beings. The only difference is that because we need to stand on only 2 legs, we are more close to the Ling aspect, the zero aspect. So there's not the Ling of the Ling body. We could get to talk about that later on too. But we are like that. So when we talk about the even-legged creatures, we can say, okay, all the creatures in the world, they belong to what is called the 10,000 beings. In Chinese, that is actually E1, and it's not the same as 10,000. 10,000 is a numerical value that we use in the West. But E1, besides being a 1 with 4 zeros and being equal numerology in numerals in amounts as 10,000, in the West that is very often being interpreted as actually meaning a lot, as if that people couldn't count beyond 10,000. That is not the case. It actually means 1, which is life, and 4 zeros, which are symbol of death, because 0 is absence of life, right? So these 4 zeros, 4 is the numerical value of a th, and that sounds exactly the same like th, death. And that means that 1 and 4 zeros, they are like an opposition. They are like an yin and a yang. And the thing is that death is a very long time, so there's a lot of death. And there's only one life. And all living creatures, all yin creatures, they are united in that one life. Because we all have the same urge, namely living longer. So when we are practicing Neidan practice, we're actually practicing Dan Dao practice. And at that moment what we want to do is we want to develop this original Yuan Qi practice. And we have to understand the nature of our body as a result of that. From the moment when we were conceptualized, our body was based on a particular kind of openness, which resulted in soft bones, but in strong muscles. And that means that our muscles and our bones, they represent each other in a particular kind of way. And the muscles develop through the postnatal process of growth and development and so on into what we call our tense and frustrated bodies. In the growing process you see in children taking place is that the body is growing hot, and that heat is going together with the actual growth of the body and becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And also at the moment when we attack enemies of the body, we grow heat, and then we kill things, and we try to save ourselves. This heating has to do with growth and aggression at the same time. This is our, you can say in our Western biology, you can call this our testosterone attitude. At the moment, an adrenal attitude as well, of course. But at the moment when we look deeper into that process, you see that in Taoism they say there are two parts. There's the part where you're heating to restore yourself and to grow towards something good. But for the actual functioning, you have to cool down. And so you have to develop in two directions. You have to be able to defend yourself and to grow, but you also have to maintain a particular kind of harmonious nature, and that one is cooling. So as a result of that, in our body we see that there is a circulation of yin and yang, which is very often seen in Western biology, or no, by modern Western and modern spiritualists, as the circulation of yin and yang energies through the body. But there are no two circulations of that. There is only one circulation, namely the circulation of fluids, and that is water actually in your body in one form or another. When you look at the body, the first channels that were being formed was the Dumai and the Renmai, and they are like a reservoir. Yeah, they are called vats actually. There are 8 of these vats, the Mai, and at the moment when you see these vats, you see that they are built up of the surplus of the rest of the body. So by moving, by meditating, by performing all kind of actions, you gradually develop a surplus in your body because of you being healthy. And then this surplus actually helps you to get back towards recognizing your Yuan Qi, your potential, so to say. The Yuan Qi is in some way likable to the concept of vitality in Western culture. So when the Yuan Qi is fully accessible to us, we have a lot of vitality, and at the moment when it is not so fully accessible, of course, we have less vitality, and as a result that we can't do our biological functioning in the way as we should, and we get diseases and we die. So the Yuan Qi is a very important part to restoring your life, and because we are very frustrated beings, we focus ourselves on eating, because eating and breathing also helps us temporarily to relieve the fear of dying. So we eat and we breathe and we drink all to compensate for our fear of dying, because we see that when we lose connection with that youthful vitality or this youthful Yuan Qi, then at that moment we can see our death coming. That's just a biological thing. So we're looking forward, we're forward-looking beings, and we can see we can see all the signs we are not doing very well. It sounds like I'm very cynical about it, but I'm a little bit cynical about it because you see this happen all the time. What I try to teach to people in the classes and through our weekly classes as well as our instructor classes and our health builder classes in general and our bachelor program, master program is how to reverse that process and to become part of that. I have to also say another thing about this kind of things, because at the moment when you start developing that, you start developing all kind of qualities in your body, some strong and some weak. The strong ones you need for, say, action A, B, C, D, E, but for your long life you need the fragile, almost unpalpable experiences to develop the inner luminosity of your body. And you go through different stages, and the Shao Zhou Ten, the small heavenly cycle inside your body cycle, that one is actually a first step, and it is a requirement for anybody wanting to study Tai Chi Chuan, Qigong, meditation, and so on and so on. And in learning that, and if you want, you can follow the link towards my meditation cycle for that. You see that it is included in what we call the 100-day meditation challenge, where you learn to activate your dantian. It's a very easy process, but it goes together with a few manipulations that you need to understand. That is namely, how do you deal with your body and how do you deal with the water of your body. And as a result of that, using different kind of hand forms, different kind of manipulations of the body as a whole, mental manipulations, you gradually come to activate the dantian in the sense that you start to becoming aware of its location and its working and its effect on the body. We're going to talk about that part in a moment too. When you are looking at the activities of the body as a whole, you can see, okay, when I control that, then automatically I can feel that circulation happening. Then we go back to the root, namely that in the Tumai and the Renmai, the fluids that are liquid, that are in there, they are actually pushing downwards from the Renmai into the Tumai. And at the moment when it comes into the Tumai, it comes to Mingmen, and if the dantian is warm enough, it heats up, and then the water steams up and goes up all the way to your crown and comes to the crown, and then it condensates and it percolates downward, and it comes all the way to your tongue, and it comes into the Renmai again, and it refills the channel. The thing is, water is not circulating as such, but the water is filling and refilling, filling and refilling, and the more full the yin is, the more pressure there is on the water to go to Mingmen, and if the Mingmen is hot enough, then there will be more steam and there will be more percolation going. This percolation that is happening is actually a gradual cleaning process of the waters of your body, and it helps you also to restore your kidneys so that it remains into youthful vigor, because normally once you are passing, say, 40-45 years of age, your kidneys will start deteriorating, and as a result of that you get every year a step closer to death, because after 7 or 8 years then the liver starts deteriorating and the kidney continue to deteriorate, and 7-8 years later the next organ, and so on and so on. Yeah, so very gradually you degenerate, and you're never too old to start. So if you're now 80, you can still start by practicing diligently. You can correct a lot, and as a result of that grow closer towards this UNC process. There are also some technical details on this, and you see that different schools have different methods, and there's a misunderstanding in these methods by the teachers very often, namely that this circulation is important because this is helping you restore your immortality, or to create immortality, but it is in fact restoring your immortality because you were immortal when you were born. You just stopped being immortal because of going into this world of nice food, nice drinks, and so on and so I don't want to say that you shouldn't do these things necessarily, but you should do them with a particular kind of strategy. And this is what the Daoist program, of course, is trying to offer, is to try to show you all these different kind of strategies that monks also use throughout the ages. And that's a very important part. And that is Dan Dao. At the moment, when you are living and waking and so on, you are continuously working this postnatal thing on the basis of food, breathing, and so on, and you restore a little bit of your body fluids, but it is not the same quality as the yuan-qi that you are born with. And this yuan-qi has to do with Tao, right? This Tao is something that is continuously there, and it doesn't really have a form or an action or anything like that, but it actually shapes processes. And processes are dependent on the environment that they are in. So in the process of the small heavenly circulation, we have to continuously adjust ourselves so that we can alter our shape. Our shape has to become more perfect, not in the sense of beauty magazines or something like this, but it has to be more perfect in the sense that it has to grow towards the ideal body. And the ideal body has soft bones and strong muscles, because the muscles carry the bones. And at the moment when the bones have to carry the muscles, then the muscles weaken and the bones become stronger, and as a result of that we dry up and we start wrinkling and we gradually die. So you see, there are some very important parts in that, and you can read all these kind of things in the Taoist classics if you want to, and you are willing to translate it with the proper concepts, and you get rid of all these modernisms that we are nowadays using in our understanding. At the moment when you are returning back to this yuan-qi thing, then you see that there are particular kind of grades of quality developing in your body, and you can address this in a military style by packing, like you're part of some kind of hard style wushu school, and in that method you force yourself to do, and it's interesting as an experience. I've done it for years, but as a method, it is also exhausting, and it is not preventing the aging process. So that's a very important part, because it's an artificial project that you are engaging yourself in, and it doesn't bring you back to the yuan-qi. It actually helps you to create fire from yang, because that is a very important part. You are trying to produce yang, and yang is in the form of steam in your body, and it's warming your body, and as a result of the warming of the body, you become gradually healthier, because it actually burns away all kind of things. That's the warming process of your body, but it has to be compensated by the condensation process to make sure that your body remains moist and soft. Then there are other methods, slower methods, faster methods. There are many methods all over the world nowadays that people follow, but very often these methods are all forms of artificial practice, like do-it-yourself reversed breathing. By doing artificial do-it-yourself reversed breathing, you actually, like a military method, you force your body to do particular kind of things, and although you can see it's good for your breathing, makes you very strong and so on, it is not exactly what we are looking for within Dan Dao. At the moment when we talk about Dan Dao, micro heaven, small heaven circulation, then we are talking about the fact that at the moment when the Dantian is active and your body is open, and your crown is above your perineum and all the dantians are aligned with each other, then automatically at Mingmen, the water is being steamed up, is going up and coming down and so on and so on, and circulating. And as a result of that, it creates a sort of homeostasis, you can say. It isn't, but you can say it like that, between the yin and the yang, and your body doesn't become too hot and it doesn't become too cold, because too cold is not good, and too warm is also not too good. And you have to gradually find out how you stay alive over time. In the meditation process, you come closer and closer to death, and from that fragility you can start developing what is called the Jing. The Jing is very often translated as essence. What they actually mean within the classics is that the Jing is essential. But the Jing is the coherence of the body. If the body is not coherent, then at that moment you automatically are weak. There is no reserve you can call essence in that sense. No, you can only say the yuan-qi is your reserves, and that's your potential. and so on and so on. It takes in the body more or less the place that the soul takes in Christianity, in the sense that it is your motivating force. The soul in the Western spirituality is that what is given to you by God, and that determines your vitality. So how much God gives you is what your vitality is about. And in Taoism, there is no concept of soul. Now, there are concepts that are very often being translated as souls, but that is because people don't understand what the soul actually is. And that is called cultural confusion. And by mixing different cultural aspects, nobody's being helped, because nobody can use any method then or any theoretical framework in a proper way. So this is a very important aspect. At the moment, when you are talking about this Jing and the coherence is good, then automatically you can start producing Qi. That means that because the Jing is good, the coherence is good, you can develop a Jin. And a Jin is the force as a result of a particular kind of action. And the yang is actually doing that force. So by moving the yang through your body through action, like for instance Tai Chi Chuan or Qigong or something like this, you can gradually develop a Qi. That means that you do something perfectly. At the moment when you do things in a perfect sense, then at that moment you can say you get rewards for what you're doing. That means that you are doing things without friction, and it means also that because of having Qi, you don't feel very much, otherwise than there's internal luminosity through which you can see the internal processes taking place in your body. And that means you also have to have a proper anatomical and physiological knowledge within the concepts of Chinese medicine frameworks. At the moment when you are at that stage, then at that moment you also start noticing that the experience becomes different. The circulation becomes more dense, which is very often confused for the sperm circling around. And then what do women do? Because they don't have these kind of things. So forget about all these kind of things. But what does happen is that because of the circulation becoming stronger, you get particular kind of signs. And one of the signs that you get is that you gradually start noticing first on your lips that there is like this kind of feeling in the tip of your tongue. And you start noticing that you have an urge to swallow, and that is actually the movement of the water coming in here. And this tongue, which is actually a god in Taoism, which holds the heavens up, is catching the saliva coming from your mouth as a result of that. And that god is reaching up to heaven. And then gradually you start noticing that feeling goes up first on your upper lip, and you can start noticing in meditation as if your lip is going up and down and closing and opening. And it is a little bit like what they very often say in the crane Qigong, that you get this feeling of the wind moving through your body, and that grows up all the way into your nose until eventually it crawls up over your forehead and goes all the way to your crown. And some people say that it can go all the way to your Mingmen back, but my teacher advised against that because he said that that actually cools down your body too much and it kills the Mingmen fire. So that is not advisable. But to your crown is good because it helps to actually reach another stage, namely where the lines of the cracks of your bones actually open and the different parts of your brain becomes free. As a result of that, you can start noticing more about the space around you, and as a result of that, you can interpret better what is then called the will of heaven is, so that you can start developing yourself further in the next stages of your development as a Taoist towards immortality, and go back to fine-tuning yourself to whatever is happening to the universe, so that you can become like heaven and earth. And so you see that this Xiao Zhou Chen is just a stage in the practice. And at the moment when you go through all these different kind of stages, you see that there is a lot of to control about, but it has to happen by itself. That's the thing, because our fear for dying causes us to want to control things and to do methods to make sure that it happens, while in fact it is a natural process, because if these things wouldn't happen, you would already be dead. It's just that you need to cultivate it. That is called Shulian. Shulian is the cultivation and the practice of processes. One of the things that you have to do is, like when you sit in meditation, your dantian becomes warm because of opening the three gates. you start having the development of a young and rising up in your body, and you see that there are difficult problems there. The first one is the Mingmen itself. Is it hot enough? So if the pressure in the dantian doesn't create that kind of bellows kind of feeling, then it is not hot enough. And that bellows kind of feeling means that the intestinal area, the dantian field, has to be clean enough so that your intestines can do this kind of movement in turn, and that they grind and they ground, and then as a result of that they blow up the fire in the Mingmen fire, which is called the ministerial fire in Chinese medicine. And then at that moment the steam is being blown up, and it rises all the way to the crown to condensate and to come back down again. Then the next one is what is called the stone gate, which is behind the heart. And at the moment when you look behind the heart, you see your shoulder blades, which is what is nowadays called in Chinese medicine the pericardium. But these are the guardians of the heart. Your shoulder blades are the guardians of the heart, and they protect you against all kind of things. And the guardians, they have this shield around the heart, which is called your rib cage. At the moment when you open up yourself through your exercises and you can relax, then the bulge on the backside is being pulled inside by lifting up these vertebrae, and as a result that the stone gate actually opens because your shoulder blades relax, and the tensions that you have on your emotional state of being, they dissipate, and the heat in the heart, which keeps you restless and tired and so on, also dissipates, so you become more cool. Then the next stage is actually where the wind gate is, and that is the opening from the skull towards the brain, the Niwan palace, the Niwan mud pill. Actually the brain is then what is a very important part. The main hindrance for that is what is called the jade pillow, the jade pillow being the back of your head, and the back of your head is like a block, and you can really feel that, you know, things pressure against that if the position of the neck is not good. So the opening of the three gates is a very important practice that we practice very often, and Tan Tuang is the main part of how to do that. Yeah, so there's different kind of practices to make sure that it actually works. But just in meditation itself, it opens already wide enough. It's just that in Tan Tuang you can open it further. It means that in Tan Tuang practice, if you lean too much forward, not good. If your head comes too much forward, not good. If your head comes too much backwards, not good. So the exact right position is the main thing to achieve. And I would advise to go to other classes or to join our classes to learn more about how this actually works. The main practice that we do for this is the Zongwuchgong practice, which is a very important root practice where you have transcended part of your health problems and then go further back towards the Yuan-Chi skills in itself. When you are interested in more of these things, you can read about it in our chapters on the cloud cover that I have been translating, and there is more coming forth, of course. And also in our bachelor program, you find a lot of these materials back as part of the root materials that you need for health cultivation and health development, and also helping people to become healthy themselves by helping them doing practices, or make sure that they have a proper massage and not in the way how people nowadays do this in clinics, because these are very often very traumatic for the body, and although they make you stronger, they bring you further away from the Yuan-Chi experience. So I outlined this whole process and I show you all the different kind of things, and the main thing what you have to do is develop your dantian, making sure that your body is open, and all these things, they will happen by themselves. If you feel energy, that means yang is turning into fire. That is not good. If you guide things with your mind, that is your mind moving, and mind moving creates wind. Wind is not good. Yeah, so that is a very important part. So prevent all these different kind of mistakes so that you do not burn your brain, that you do not create heat in your intestines or in your vertebrae. Of course, even if you try to do things in the most natural way possible, you probably make a few mistakes on the line with it. Don't hesitate to ever contact me. I'm always open to give people good advice. And at the moment when you see that your teacher is actually doing all the things that I say, like this is not the natural part, this is not how Dan Dao is being created, you can understand that your teacher, if he hasn't done these kind of practices, he shouldn't teach it. So that's a very important part. at the moment when your teacher is trying to show you these things without having the proper experience, try to be careful with what they're saying. I hope this movie actually helps you. I'm not in the place to talk bad about the intentions of people, because that's not my intention. I think a lot of people, they try to do the right thing, but they just have the wrong information. And I hope this video can contribute to the correction of this information. And if you like to come to my classes, of course, as I said before, you're more than welcome. Anybody is my friend. So help me also by sharing this and be a good friend to me. That would be really great. So share this video with your friends, anybody who you know who's practicing microcosmic orbit, or teaching about or practicing some form of Dantian meditation in a fragmented way. Have fun.